Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Toast. We did have that PlayStation State of Play yesterday, which didn't really, it didn't give us a lot of answers for their first-party lineup, but there was still a few big announcements here that we will go over, including Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That game just looks absolutely incredible, especially after the first remake was so good. I mean, I personally love that game, but they did end its trailer with a mystifying announcement that begs the question: are these games no longer bound to PlayStation in the near future? Actually, the very near future in this case. Well, we will get into all of that today, as well as some cool Spider-Man 2 news that continues to roll out throughout the day with those early previews, and then also an Xbox Game Pass update. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot to get into today, so without any further ado, let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with Horizon Forbidden West. Here recently, a complete edition was spotted on the Singapore ratings board. This is presumed to be Horizon Forbidden West plus the Burning Shore expansion in one single package, which honestly isn't all that hard to believe on its own. They did do something very similar with Horizon Zero Dawn years ago, but here's the thing. There might be a little bit more to this release that meets the eye, or at least according to the prominent leaker, Bill Coon. By this point, he has more than proven his credibility. Now, even if so, though, keep in mind that this is still just a rumor until proven true, but according to him, the Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition isn't just slated for the PlayStation 5 release. Rather, this is what he said. According to our latest information, the next PlayStation exclusive that will be released on PC is none other than Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition. The game will be available as usual on Steam and the Epic Games Store. Unfortunately, we still haven't managed to get the game's release date, but based on our data collected in the past, its release should be imminent, estimated at less than a month from today. So, if this is true, even though he can't confirm a release date as of right now, it does apparently appear an announcement will be imminent. And, you know, when you first hear that, you would think that if this is true, then surely they would have announced it at the PlayStation State of Play, right? But, you know, looking back on it, Sony's actually, they're kind of weird when it comes to their PC releases. They don't market them near as much as their console games. And in fact, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, that received very similar treatment. When they ported that game over to PC, they could have announced it at the PlayStation Showcase just earlier this year, but they didn't do that. Instead, they announced it after that showcase, which again, might be a little weird, but that is kind of Sony's approach to their PC ports. So, I mean, it is what it is, but this is definitely not the first time they've done something like this. I definitely would not rule out an announcement sometime soon just because they didn't announce it at the State of Play. Either way, though, I mean, we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens. But, I mean, if this does actually happen, this could really be huge. This would mean that Sony is officially porting their PS5 games, including their big blockbuster hits. Now, speaking of PlayStation's big blockbuster hits, though, we might as well just go ahead and talk about Spider-Man 2. It did make an appearance at yesterday's PlayStation State of Play, really one of the highlights of the night. It's looking about as good as what you would expect. The gameplay is smooth. The transition from its fast travel is crazy good, very stylish and seamless. Probably the best fast travel I've seen in the game thus far, or at least that I can recall, which, I mean, they claim is because the PlayStation 5 solid-state drive. Of course, the PS4 still had a mechanical drive, so this is one big improvement that they were able to make with the sequel. That has been one question. How are they going to improve this game? And that is one such way. It also has a bigger city this time around to explore than the first game. It is roughly double the size of the original, so, I mean, this is not just a simple copy and paste game. They are making some big improvements here, as they revealed at this showcase. They are making some legitimate improvements, and is looking to be another premier Insomniac experience. Seriously, this might be one of the best acquisitions that any publisher has made in recent years. Insomniac has just knocked it out of the park for PlayStation since being acquired. Here's the thing, though. Hands-on previews have also started to roll out today for Spider-Man 2, and so far, the response has been absolutely glowing. It sounds like Spider-Man 2 is as good as we were hoping it would be, and maybe even possibly better. I've heard various times today, people's hype and expectations have only risen with these early previews. That's how good they are so far. Check this out, though. It's now been confirmed that Spider-Man 2 will have 3 different visual modes. Players can choose to play at 30 FPS, 60 FPS, or they can even choose 40 frames per second. And oh, by the way, ray tracing will be enabled in every single mode. That's pretty impressive. Insomniac continues to push the bar with Spider-Man 2. Again, they're just an incredible studio all around. But the 40 FPS option, that right there is what I'm personally most excited about. And let me just kind of explain why. While I'm probably going to play this game at 60 frames per second, I've been calling for more studios to offer a 40 frames per second option for quite a while. If you have a Steam Deck, you'll probably understand why, but 40 FPS, to some surprise, is actually a big improvement over 30 FPS. And now with some recent releases struggling to reach 60 FPS like Final Fantasy 16 and Starfield, a 40 FPS option, that would be great to have. That's all I'm trying to say. But the fact that an immensely popular game that's probably going to sell 20 plus million units is going to include it as an option, maybe this will alert other developers to do the same. I'm certainly hoping so. But in the meantime, Spider-Man 2 looks excellent, and I'm excited to jump in next month on October 20th. Glad to see its marketing start to ramp up. Continuing on, though, of course, there was plenty of other games shown at PlayStation State of Play, though for the most part, I'd honestly say that this was a very average event. There was a few interesting announcements thrown in here as well, but yeah, so they opened up this show with a new IP, Baby Steps, which was kind of weird, honestly. It might be worth a laugh or two with friends, or if you want to stream it online, that might be a good option. But definitely a strange game to kick off PlayStation State of Play with. You would think that they would want to go a little bit more, pizzazz than this, but hey, baby steps, there you go. They also revealed some VR games, including Resident Evil 4 VR mode and Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord. I know there's been a call for more PSVR 2 titles, and you got that here at this showcase, and these are actually interesting. I think Resident Evil 7 VR mode was probably one of the better PSVR experiences last generation, so Resident Evil 4 VR mode is highly anticipated. I do expect this to be a very good and horrifying experience when it comes to PSVR 2. Now, that's kind of the thing here, though, because we still don't have a release date, but we do have a release window. It is set for this winter. Though the more exciting news here is that Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways was also announced. This is the DLC where you follow Ada Wong's perspective in Resident Evil 4. A lot of fans have been really hoping for this inclusion since they first announced the remake, and not only did they announce it here, but it's also right around the corner. This will release next week on September 21st. That's a great surprise all on its own. But yeah, if your next couple months wasn't just already busy enough, well, you now have some more Resident Evil 4 to look forward to in the very near future. Legitimately, though, I think this was one of the most exciting announcements at this showcase. I do love me some Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Capcom is putting in the work to make it the definitive edition going forward, including its DLC, as we can see here. Another big game that they showcased here, though, was Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. I feel like that this game hasn't really generated a ton of excitement up to this point, but hey, I'd say with its new gameplay here, that might start to change. They showed a lot of gameplay, and it looks pretty good. I think that it looks absolutely beautiful, as you would hope from the Avatar franchise. The environments are creative, and they're just stunning to behold. And the thing that I was impressed by, or most impressed by in this case, is the character models. They look equally as good. I honestly came away impressed by this game. Before this, I was a little lukewarm to what we had seen of this game, but this reveal, it might have changed my mind. I'm now genuinely interested, and it is set for a December 7th release. So 2023 has already been a great year for us gamers, but it also might end with a bang. Now, they did also reveal a couple games for JRPG fans. Tales of Arise is getting a new expansion titled Beyond the Dawn. It's apparently set 1 year after the conclusion of its main story, and Bandai Namco quote-unquote said, sometimes a story is over, but not done. In fact, it adds an additional 20 hours of content, including new quests, new dungeons, boss fights, and of course, a new story arc. So if you do want more Tales of Arise, which by the way, this is a great game, then its DLC is set to release on November 9th. Honkai Star Rail, being Hoyoverse's next PS5 game, got a release date as well. It is set for October 11th. Now, if you're not aware though, Hoyoverse is the studio behind Genshin Impact. That was a standout exclusive for PlayStation, a huge hit for them, and I think they're hoping that partnership continues to be fruitful with Honkai Star Rail. At the very least, I mean, we're not going to have to wait all that much longer because, again, it will be releasing on October 11th. Speaking of release dates for console exclusives, though, Helldivers 2 is now set for February 8th of 2024. They showed this multiplayer trailer with some strange dialogue. It's always amusing seeing publishers try to mimic conversations that happens online. It always comes off as a little corny, but as for the gameplay, it does look solid. Now, admittedly, I never got into the first game, but I do know there's a lot of people that liked it, and I think the sequel looks better than that first entry. So I think fans are probably going to be pretty happy with its reveal here. Now, another multiplayer game that they showed, though, was Square Enix's imitation of Splatoon, Foam Stars. Now, this game has been kind of a strange one because fans have not really latched onto this idea just yet, but I do remember there was some articles that was written not all that long ago that critics was very impressed by this game, or at least of what they tried of it back at their last event, and they were claiming that this is not just a Splatoon clone, and hey, maybe all that is actually true. Maybe this will be a huge surprise hit among fans, but the trailer, I don't think exactly showcased how it's unique compared to Splatoon. This looks very similar. It looks just like Splatoon. But hey, we'll see if Square Enix can imitate that success on PlayStation, because Splatoon, it is a very popular franchise, especially over in Japan. So Foam Stars, it's going to be interesting to follow to see how it does commercially. That's what I'm most interested in when it comes to this game. An open beta, though, was announced. However, it will run through September 29th to October 1st. So if you're interested, you might want to go ahead and check it out. The big announcement for this showcase, though, was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, I personally love the original Final Fantasy VII, and actually the Final Fantasy VII Remake for that matter. You all are probably well aware by this point, but this is one of my favorite franchises ever. And Final Fantasy VII is among one of the top reasons as to why. So to say that I'm excited about Rebirth is a little bit of an understatement here. And especially after its new trailer, it looks incredible. We saw some recognizable characters like Vincent. That was a nice surprise since he was optional in the original. They also revealed that Sephiroth is a completely playable character. That is pretty cool. We saw chocobo riding. We saw the Golden Saucer, which is an amusement park if you played the original. They also announced it will have 100 hours of content, which is crazy considering the original could be completed in around 36 hours. Even for completionists, that game tracked around 82 hours, and so far with both remakes, Part 1 and Part 2, they are massively expanded. This is the exact reason that I do prefer the remake so far. They've greatly expanded on stories and characters. I mean, if you played the remake as an example, Wedge and Jesse, they are greatly expanded. These were just small side characters in the original, but they were greatly expanded in the remake, and they were phenomenally written. So, I mean, I just cannot wait to play Rebirth and see how they've expanded on its story. That right there, though, is the good news. It will release on February 29th. So go ahead and mark your calendars and get your pre-orders in. Here's the thing, though, because right at the end of its trailer, there was something that caught some people off guard. Right at the end of the trailer, in fine print, it states, not available on other formats at least until May 29th of 2024. So that would mean that Sony only has this game locked down for 3 single months, and that's it. That is a bit of a surprise. I think most people assumed that they would have at least locked down for an entire year like they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. But that's not actually the case here, or so it appears. It instead appears that Rebirth will be free to go to other platforms after just 3 months, which kind of begs the question, which platforms are we talking about here? Now, I think PC is the most likely here. Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course, is available on PC as we speak, but this does once again open the door for Xbox and maybe even possibly the Nintendo Switch successor. There have been some rumors going around that Square has already gotten a working port on the Switch successor. And if you think about it, I mean, Square Enix, they also announced that bundled package for both Remake and Rebirth that you can purchase together for a reduced price. That bundle is meant for newcomers, which would be quite enticing for hypothetical other platforms. Now, with all that said, though, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up here because this could mean absolutely nothing for other consoles. This could only be for a PC version like what happened with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I wouldn't necessarily go in holding your breath for an Xbox and Nintendo port, but coming from me personally, I do hope it happens. Do I think it's likely? I'm not exactly sure about that, but do I hope it happens? Yes, and I'm going to explain why. Again, this is one of my favorite franchises, and I do care about its future. I think it deserves to be completely multi-platform for millions more to see how good it is, not just for this game, but for future games as well. Now, I've tried to explain this before. I don't know if I've done a great job at it, but I'm not necessarily against third-party exclusives. That cannot be further from the truth. I think it's actually beneficial for both parties in some cases. Take Honkai Star Rail as an example. That's a new IP, and it can use that exclusivity, that PlayStation exclusivity, for extra exposure online. People get excited over exclusives, and they talk about them. So word of mouth can be good for these new IPs. Final Fantasy, though, it doesn't really need that extra exposure. This is a massive franchise. It was always going to sell well on PlayStation, so I think their contract benefits PlayStation a lot more than it benefits Square Enix. I think that Square Enix is limiting themselves by making it exclusive. Just like I said with Persona, they need to grow the Final Fantasy fanbase across all platforms when they can. That way, when Final Fantasy 17 drops, it is a healthy fan base on each individual platform rather than just PlayStation alone. That will open them up to millions of more consumers. So far, though, I mean, they've not really grown that fan base properly, and I think that that's a long-term mistake for a short-term gain. I get that they're probably making a quick lump sum off of PlayStation, but I just think that that's a short-term gain where they really should be looking into the long-term future. That's just my view on this situation. I understand that there's going to be some differing opinions on this, but it is what it is. Whatever the case may be, though, I'm super excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it looks incredible. Now, before we go, though, we did also get an update for Xbox Game Pass. It's been a while since we got raw Xbox Game Pass subscriber numbers. We've known for a while that it topped 25 million subscribers, but that was way back in 2021. So it's been a little while since we've heard anything about its growth, but that might have changed today because according to Xbox's Senior Director of Global Brand and Marketing, they have in fact grown by an additional 5 million subscribers. According to his LinkedIn profile, he claimed this: launched and grew Xbox Game Pass, the world's #1 gaming subscription service, to over 30 million members through measured full funnel campaigns, GTM planning, SKU expansion to PC, iOS, and Android, and partnerships with Alienware, EA Play, Spotify, and Disney Plus to drive off console growth and deliver over $1 billion in customer lifetime value. That's all very impressive stuff, if accurate. Now, that is kind of the thing here, though. This has not been officially confirmed directly by Microsoft, so you still do need to take it with a grain of salt. But just considering the person that's posting this, it is a good indication that this might very well be true. Now, he has since removed this from his profile, which means that he probably shouldn't have put it out there in the first place. But this is what we know right now. It appears that this was in August, so this doesn't include the addition of Xbox Game Pass Core or Starfield. So this number may have ballooned even more since this post was made, again, assuming that is true. Obviously, Starfield has been huge for Xbox with 6 million players on launch, so I do imagine that its subscribers moved quite a bit for just that game alone. Either way, I mean, Game Pass is doing some work, it appears, and that's a lot of monthly revenue coming from Game Pass alone. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, what letter grade would you give PlayStation State of Play 9.14.23? And okay, so the majority of you did give it a C, 3% gave it an A, 10% gave it a B, 42% being the majority gave it a C, 26% gave it a D, and then 20% gave it an F. So there are quite a few voting C and below, meaning that this event was average at best. Which, okay, so I do agree with that. I did not go into this event with a lot of expectations just because this is a state of play. By this point, it does seem like state of play tends to be a little on the smaller side of things compared to their big PlayStation showcases. But, you know, there was 2 games that really got my attention with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and then also Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways. So while I don't think that this event had some huge surprises per se, I did leave happy for those 2 games alone. And then, hey, Spider-Man 2 continues to look just as good as we hoped. The only thing is, though, is that there's just so many questions about PlayStation's future after Spider-Man. Their first-party lineup is a complete mystery after Spider-Man 2, which it's kind of strange. I mean, really all we know about is kind of their live service games, but I'm hoping they're going to start to announce those sooner rather than later. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.